Hi Zoe, we're here today to chat about the upcoming budget on the 26th of November, and obviously there's been lots of different headlines about a multitude of different things that could happen, but I think the one message that is quite clear is that it doesn't sound like it's going to be a positive budget. So of course that kind of gives taxpayers some concerns about what they should be thinking of pre-budget. So it's good to have a chat with you about, what you think we're expecting to see in this budget, and I guess what is the most important things to take away for our clients and taxpayers out there.
Hey Ben, there's lots of scary things planned for the budget or leaked for the budget. As an international tax specialist, I really only care about one. We can come on to that. I guess the point is there is discussion around income tax rates going up, capital gains being aligned with income tax.
Do you think they'll align it? Do you think they'll align it fully?
No, I don't think so. I think as we've discussed before, it's tell people it's going to be aligned, and then actually it goes up to 28 or 30.
Because 28 is better than 40, right?
It doesn't exactly. That said, it's likely still going up. And a lot of people's response to that is, well, I'll just leave. And as you know, we've helped people leave the UK a lot over the last 5 years, even longer, but particularly in the last 12 months, moving businesses and individuals. And I think that the government is alive to that. And I think the most kind of likely thing that we'll see is an exit tax come in, and most likely effective from the day of the budget.
I mean, that's going to annoy a lot of people, right? I mean, last year we did see the capital gains rate increase at budget day, literally as Rachel Reeves was announcing it effectively after, on that day, on the 31st of October, the capital gains tax rate changed. So do you think it would be immediate? Because, post last budget, we had people, obviously within the crypto space, people are always looking to find more tax advantageous jurisdictions where they're sitting on wealth that they've made from crypto. But we saw more people than ever, I think, that are not necessarily within crypto look to move to different jurisdictions as a result of the last budget. So this is going to annoy a lot of people if suddenly the rates change and suddenly we're saying, and you've got no other options because of an exit tax.
That's the beauty of an exit tax, is you're stuck. If you put income tax up and you put capital gains up, from the day of the budget, then people that are in a position to move might move. If you bring in an exit tax, there's nothing you can do. You are stuck. And the question then is, how much is the exit tax? So there's been talk of it being a kind of 20% flat rate. Well, we should talk about what an exit tax is, I guess.
Sure.
So an exit tax usually means that you are deemed to have disposed of all of your assets at market value the day that you leave the UK. So if your assets are standing at a gain, whether that's shares, crypto, any asset that's standing at a gain, you would have to pay tax on that gain when you leave. Even though you haven't sold the assets, you don't actually have any disposal proceeds to pay the gain. So what we call a dry tax charge. At the moment, there's kind of leaked reports that it will be a 20% tax rate, which is obviously lower than the existing capital gains tax. I think that more likely it would just be the capital gains tax rate relevant to your asset. So if that's the current rate of 24% for crypto, 28% for property, then if they don't move, then it would be those. I think it will be those rates. So, and of course, if those rates go up, then that's the rate you would pay if you left the UK.
Does this align with what other jurisdictions have in place? Do other countries implement exit taxes?
Yeah, we have. There's an exit tax in Germany, an exit tax in South Africa. There are other. I think there are other EU jurisdictions that have exit taxes. Most EU jurisdictions that have them allow you to defer the tax if you move into another EU jurisdiction, so that the rules are not discriminatory for the free movement principles. So, but we don't have that. We're not in the EU. So if you leave the UK, then that's going to be, if there is an exit tax, then that's a full and final tax due when you leave.
But I presume this makes the UK less attractive for people with wealth to come to the UK, right? On the premise that at some point in the future.
I mean, I don't think that the UK, unless you're coming under the FIG regime, I don't think it's an attractive place to come from a tax perspective anyway. The FIG regime is actually really interesting, and particularly in crypto, where you have a lot of founders that are young, possibly don't have families or have very young families, so they have flexibility to move from one jurisdiction and up to another. 4 years with the UK doesn't seem disruptive. So the FIG regime in our sector is actually very interesting, and the fact that your foreign income and gains can be remitted to and spent in the UK, which wasn't the case under the old non-dom regime. So I do think people will, once people understand, I think a lot of people aren't even aware of the FIG regime or the benefits of it. And I think once people start to understand that, we will still see people come here under that regime and then leave end of year 4. And let's assume that UK Citus assets are subject to an exit tax. I think they would then just plan not to have UK Citus assets.
And is it likely to apply, and again, I appreciate this is all speculation, but is it likely to apply to everyone? Could it be based on, a certain proportion of assets, i.e. you have over 1 million of assets and you're leaving the UK, could they target certain profiles of taxpayers through an exit charge? Would it be a blanket charge to all? And is there some sort of, would it operate, do you think, in the sense of, right, we've got certain individuals that have probably been UK tax resident their whole lives. We've probably got some people who've just come over wanting to be UK tax resident, look at the state of things and gone, actually, God, you know what? This was a bad decision. I'm going to leave. Would it come to them too? I'm asking you speculative questions. I'm obviously not expecting to have an answer here, but I just wondered whether you had any thoughts on how that might operate, or whether it would just be a blanket across the board. Everyone just gets taxed.
I mean, obviously, I have absolutely no idea. I think that from a simplicity perspective, I can't imagine there will be threshold carve-outs. You don't have those with capital gains. Do we even have the annual gains exemption anymore?
Yeah, it's 3,000. I mean, it's barely there, right? It's £3,000.
I can't imagine there will be thresholds. You make a good point. What if you've just arrived? I know we've got the new foreign income and gains regime. You can come here for 4 years and not pay tax on your foreign income and gains. We actually have moved quite a lot of people to the UK since April under that regime. That regime's going to no longer be attractive if actually when you leave at 4 years, you'll have an exit tax. So it's likely that there would be some sort of carve out if you're under the FIG regime before exit tax applies. Or perhaps, it's a good point actually. Do you need to do that? If your foreign income and gains are not subject to tax anyway, it would only be your UK Citus gains that would be subject to the exit tax. So actually, there probably won't be a carve out for FIG. I think in order to bring an exit tax in and properly enforce it, it needs to be as simple as possible, i.e. it applies to everybody and at the same rate and same thresholds.
We've already had clients coming to us saying, hey, look, obviously we do a lot of work on the crypto data, and we're aware that there might be a capital gains tax change on the 26th of November. And actually some people are saying, hey, look, maybe I need to look at what profit I can take through the year now before things change. What would your advice be to individuals who may have an option out when it comes to the exit tax? It's a big thing to do. Do I pack my bags, leave the UK on the 25th of November, listen to the budget abroad and never return home? What sort of proactive steps could people take?
I think if it's entirely feasible that you could leave the UK and it's something you have been thinking about, and an exit tax would just kind of expedite that or help you make that decision. We don't have much time if it comes in on the 26th of November. So if it were me, I would, and I had that option to break UK residence and leave at some point, I would be out. I would not be here on the budget. So day before, at least, I would be in another jurisdiction. And so probably it's worth taking a step back. An individual is tax resident for a whole tax year, but there are certain circumstances in which you can claim split year treatment. That means splitting the tax year into two parts, a period of residence and a period of non-residence. one of the ways in which you can claim split year treatment is by going to work full-time overseas. And so one option may be that you second yourself to, or your company seconds you to go and work full-time overseas in, let's say, the UAE, and you do that now, and you go to the UAE now, and you wait to see what happens on budget day. And if it is an exit tax that's effective on the 26th, then you have a chance, potentially, subject to meeting all the relevant other conditions and not having too many return days between now and the end of this tax year, you could potentially claim split year treatment. But if you are here on the 26th and exit tax comes in as of that day, then you have no options.
So we've only got 2 weeks. How practical is it for someone to be able to take advice and actually implement that within that time frame?
It's a good question. And I'm also conscious that if someone comes to us and they want to take advice on this, that, you know, we could they can engage us, we can write a report on how to, you know, claim split year treatment, how not to become resident, and then the exit tax might not come in, and they've just had to pay for, you know, it's not inexpensive formal advice. And I'm also conscious that onboarding is not a particularly speedy process. I think we can probably turn onboarding around within a week. Particularly for individuals, it's generally a bit faster. But in terms of the advisory process, I would almost envisage splitting the engagement into kind of 2 phases. So what should you absolutely do now? You know, we talked about a secondment agreement. That might not fit for everybody, but we could say, okay, this is what you must do now. We can input on an agreement or whichever relevant case to claim split year is. And then if the exit tax comes in, then we do the more detailed tax report on how to, you know, how to actually claim split year treatment. So you almost split it into 2 phases with a kind of smaller fee up front, and then the bulk of the fee if and when we actually kind of write more formal detailed advice.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about budget-wise? I mean, that's a pretty big thing for a lot of people to have to consider.
I think not necessarily budget-wise. I'm just focused on the exit tax thing.
Sure.
You know, as an international tax specialist and helping companies and individuals relocate, that's kind of where my focus is. I do just want to flag that I've talked about the foreign income and gains regime, and that if you come to the UK and you're not, your foreign income and gains are not subject to tax, it's not that black and white. You can't assume all of your foreign income and gains are not subject to tax. There's a bunch of complexities and anti-avoidance rules in the UK that could actually pierce that foreign income and gains regime and remove some of the benefits. So I didn't mention that earlier. So totally not budget related, but
no, still very important.
A flag.
Okay, lots to think about, lots to do. I guess we'll check in and have another chat post-budget, see where we landed, see if any of the speculation was correct, and catch up then. Thank you, Zoe.
You're very welcome.